Hi kids, you know what day it is? It's Star Wars Day! Therefore it's time for my annual Star Wars build. I said it before that although my interest in Star Wars as a franchise diminished somewhat since the sequels, I'm still a sucker for the aesthetics. That said, new Star Wars racing game is coming and every self-respecting crafter on YouTube has to make a Podracer at some point, and I haven't made one yet, so I guess this is the day.
This is the day.
I started by diving into my pile of junk to find some lids and other round objects to make my engines, and after some fiddling and trying few variations, I settled on these jet-like engines, but with the fan blades mounted outside, which were made from some fidget spinners. Since they had two Lego-like studs on the back, I burned holes in the lids with my soldering iron, which made them easier to attach. Next, I got this furniture protector to serve as a power coupling chassis and attached it to both engines using some EVA foam so the glue could have something to grab to. I wrapped more EVA foam around the engines to better hold all three elements together. This was a part of a head mount from a face shield from which I made a visor from my Boba Fett helmet long time ago. Now it will serve as a base for the cockpit. I glued some circular dinghy to the hole, which will be used later to mount the model on a stand. For the actual cockpit, I used a part from a toy military jeep. I glued some more foam around it, which helped the glue to stick better and doubled up as a seat. I made a seat backrest using a handle from a spray bottle sprinkler. I've cut a rectangle from this interesting patterned piece of food tray to make the cockpit's metal floor. Next, I've dismantled this contraption that was a part of a bicycle helmet, took out those longer pieces and saved the rest, as well as the helmet for another project that I'm currently working on. Subscribe to not miss it. Wink. Anyway, I cut the broader pieces to attach them to the sides of the cockpit. After all that, I glued the cockpit to the chassis and used some small screws to firmly bond them together. Then I attached the leftover parts of the helmet dinghies to the side of the cockpit. Not sure what function they have, but I thought it might look cool. Remember those from the last build? Turns out you can make a steering handle from those dummy robot parts too. I glued them together, added handles and a control panel made from a knockoff Lego walkie-talkie. To finish the building part, I scored some lines into the foam to make the seat look more like a seat, and then I used a similar technique I did with my first bot bash by bending a thin wire to make the power beam between the engines, which I glued into the chassis with some hot glue. With that, the building part was done. I have to admit, I goofed up. I did record the process of building this guy, but I lost the footage somehow. I'm kinda mad at myself and I'm very sorry that you couldn't watch this, but I can't do anything about it now, so here's a quick recap of how it was made. I used the headless body of a Clone Wars Count Dooku figure, at least I think it was it judging by the overall look, that I found in a thrift store some time ago. I took the head from another very poor quality cheap figure which was ugly AF, so I covered it with some thin strips of masking tape, drilled a hole at the bottom of the head and attached it to the body. As you can see, it's a Tusken Raider and his mask features were made from toothpicks and another robot dummy part. I also added a cloth from an old t-shirt for good measure. I found a rifle in my small toy guns collection too and made a gaffy stick from another piece of Jeep and a toothpick. Then I painted the head in some yellow-brown-ish color, the tubes and eyes in silver and the mouthpiece as well as the gaffy stick and the gun in brown. I tried to lighten up the fabric with some dark yellow, but the cloth I used doesn't take paint very well, so it ended up mostly as it was. I always find the process of painting very fun, but almost every time I have no idea which color scheme to use, so I mostly improvise on the spot. Although I've noticed that dry brushing with a silver paint is probably the most satisfying thing about it. It never fails to impress me how details are popping out with just a few strokes. Of course, it's still a far cry from the works of other builders here on YouTube, but hey, if you find it enjoyable, I'm happy. Anyway, the engines were painted with some nice orange, and some of the features such as the seat, the steering panel mount and the foam stripe ended up red. I also tried to pop those energy beams with red, but it's not very bright. Some neon paint would probably work better with it, but I don't have any, so I had to settle with this, especially because I was running short on time since I did it literally yesterday. On a side note, my junk collection is getting bigger and bigger, so if you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see me building, feel free to leave a comment. I'd be glad to get rid of some of those things since I'm running low on storage room. Seriously, my desk is stacked with boxes upon boxes of various trash crafting materials, which I'd like to use in some way, so yeah, let me know if you have some ideas. Also, I'm planning to make some other type of videos on this channel because my area of interest is pretty diverse, so I'm curious if you'd like some other type of content from time to time, such as drawing or painting videos, maybe some gaming or even lives. Let me know, guys. Alright, here's a quick backstory while I'm painting. Gar found himself in a tough spot. When returning to his settlement from a water run, he found his entire clan gone and the settlement destroyed. By the looks of it, they must have perished in a sudden crate dragon attack. With nothing else to lose, he left his ruined home in hopes to find another clan that could bring him in. After several days of aimless journey, he and his bantha wandered near the outskirts of Mos Eisley, where his eyes caught an older man trying to start up a damaged Podracer. Gar, unlike his brethren, was more fond of humans, so he approached the man, raising his hands in a gesture of goodwill. The man, although cautious, greeted the stranger using sign language and offered him some food and water. He introduced himself as Merok, a retired mechanic which was buying damaged or destroyed Podracers and repaired them. The two made an agreement that Gar will learn to pilot the machine and participate in the races in return for all the profits from the events. That gave them both a new purpose and made them one of the most unlikely and bizarre team-ups ever taking part in the annual Mos Espa Bunta Eve pod race. So that's my Podracer. What do you think? Again, sorry for the missing footage, I have to be more careful with my clips in the future. But anyhow, I hope you liked it, and if you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and until next time, may the force be with you. Bye!